So your topic is on robotics, on how all these technologies can improve the rehabilitation of these patients' brain injury. So how would you research or some specific technologies you are finding on research like are shown to be effective in the actual rehabilitation of patients with brain injury?
Yeah, the thing that we found as we were reading through the literature is that actually there are not a lot of well-controlled studies of any form of rehabilitation in the earliest stages of recovery from brain injury. What we found is that more of the studies are focusing on recovery in the chronic stages. The guidance that's available to therapists in the very earliest stages, when the patient just a matter of days or weeks after recovery, is pretty slim. One of the things that's tough for the therapists who are working at this time is that the patients are so distractible, they're so impulsive and sometimes aggressive, that it's very hard for them to participate in most traditional therapies. Now, the virtual reality technology that's out there, like the one that's set up in the lobby here, it's really cool. I mean, you have very realistic, lifelike environments, all sorts of new ways to intervene that we didn't have years ago. But what we found was actually the big advantage with our intervention was not in its sophistication, not in the fact that it was very realistic and detailed graphics. We actually found that the way we could have an impact in these very early stages of recovery is to simplify, to remove the level of complexity that is present in just most standard therapies. Or when a speech therapist or an occupational therapist is treating in a busy room with lots of noise and other things to look at, our patients can't engage with the task. They're looking at other things in the room. They're wanting to get up and do things. We're like, no, come back, sit. And they can't. What we found was, and I'll present a little bit about this tomorrow, is that even in one of our toughest cases that we've ever had on the unit, I mean, someone who was so impulsive and so upset that he would constantly be lashing out at therapists and they could not get him to engage in anything, when we put him inside the virtual reality apparatus, he was fascinated. He was very much interested in this. He would sit down and he would work with the equipment. He would interact with the task. And we were able to see some preliminary evidence of improved outcome as well. But just the engagement in itself, I think, was a huge achievement.
Apart from all these that you just explained, that all these use in virtual environments or virtual reality, to help with the rehabilitation, actually that's very important because as a tool you have in order to improve their quality of life, whatever. But also then is motivation. I mean, the motivation of the patient. Is it so motivation of the patient actually like towards these new technologies? Is it different than towards like normal therapies that up to today, they've been, faced to these therapies that have been like what we could call just normal or
standard care.
Standard therapies.
In the motor rehabilitation research especially, there's been some very good work done about the level of engagement that the patient needs to have. The Locomat, an apparatus that's used in rehabilitation of gait. There's been some very good work looking at if there's some patients that are just passively allowing their limbs to be manipulated, there's not very good functional recovery. They're just along for the ride. They're just letting the robot take them for a walk. But if they've done research to take a look at when patients are more engaged, if they're actually making effort to move the limb themselves, that the outcome improves. So the question becomes, how do we as therapists try to encourage that additional effort that seems to result in good outcome? And some very interesting research has been done that shows that if you can get the person more on board, if you can give them something they really want to do, then they start engaging with the therapy. There's a great study that I was reading about where they had children with cerebral palsy, and they put them in a virtual environment where they were playing soccer, football, and they were measuring the amount of effort that the child was exerting to try and control the robotic apparatus. And as they were like trying to make a goal or trying to get past an opposing player, they worked so hard. I mean, and they were motivated, and they had better outcome. And so that's in motor rehab. I think we are hoping in cognitive rehab, we can encourage that same kind of motivation, that same kind of engagement in the task. In the absence of that, I don't know that we'll really see very good outcomes.
So he's very interested actually this research on children with DD is about trying to aim a goal and all that, and he's trying to, so because of your broad experiences with all this, not only he wants to know your point of view not only as a human being, but also obviously as a medical staff. These therapies on virtual reality, for example, in children with cerebral palsy. When you develop all these therapies based on virtual environments, like virtual reality, when you do the development of these therapies, is there a difference when you create them for you aim them at children or at adults? So is these tasks that you create for children, for instance, like would they differ very much from those that can be developed for adults, or both are just similar?
That's a really good question. I was actually asking Pablo earlier about that as he was demonstrating the gear out there. I don't have data myself. All my subjects are adults. I think the youngest we've had is like age 18. We hypothesize that the younger kids who've grown up with video games and with computers will have greater facility with the technology, that they'll be comfortable with it, that they'll be interested in it, and that it'll hold their attention, whereas it just might be kind of overwhelming to an older adult. That's our hypothesis, but I do have just anecdotal experience of like my father, who was 84 years old, is in a senior community, and they bought a Wii system, and I thought, oh gosh, I'm trying to teach my dad how to like write MP3 files for his computer, and it seems to be too much. But when they gave him the Wii system, I thought it would not be beneficial to him. I thought it would be overwhelming for him. Well, he totally loves it. I mean, he does all these games with it. He's very good at it, and it's actually one of the better residents they have there in doing some of these games. So I think there is an age effect, but I think it's important that our own prejudices, our own expectations don't prevent us from trying out interventions, even with people that we might initially think couldn't benefit from it. I think they possibly can. We'll have to actually get the data and see if it's true.
All the applied technology applied to neurorehabilitation, is there one or some the technology you're like specifically and personally interested in?
The way that the Traumatic Brain Injury Model System program at the Rehab Institute of Chicago has worked is that there are so many different areas there where we can start to make a difference. It's hard to pick just one. One thing that's of interest to me right now, and I don't know if it has much relevance to the technological work I've done up till now, I think that what we need to do is to start to look at the integration of both motor rehab and cognitive rehab. We tend to make a distinction between the two. We say we're just going to help you regain movement, or we say we're just going to help you regain the ability to think. Two different worlds, two different disciplines. What I've seen as I've been starting to read up on the literature, it's very interesting that some of the best things you can do to regain your cognitive strengths is to also increase your level of motor activity. Some very, there's a big emphasis right now in the popular press. What can we do to help people regain their memory? Older adults, they're all doing Sudoku number puzzles. They're all like taking ginkgo biloba or all these different things. They want a magic pill. They want a magic exercise that's going to help them regain their function. The best data, the data I've seen, the strongest effect size that I've observed in my own reading in predicting maintenance of cognitive function is level of physical activity. And I would love to develop a program working with our brain-injured patients to find ways that we can start to encourage and facilitate greater physical aerobic exercise with the expectation that that would then exert very strong effects on memory and concentration. Yeah. We need to marry the two rather than divorce them. There's very little out there. What I'm going to do tomorrow in my talk is I'm going to give a great big long section about virtual reality interventions that just involve vision, some that involve sound. I looked hard to find studies on robotics in cognitive rehab. I really looked. I got a whole team of research assistants to really look to find what's out there. I wrote to people emails around the world trying to find studies where robotics is being used in cognitive rehab. Very little is out there. It's going to be a very short part of my talk tomorrow when I summarize what's been done. I think it's in development. I think that soon we will start to see a lot of important data in this area. There's not very much out there right now. I think it's an area that's wide open for further study.
But do you think that new technologies can be better for rehabilitation than the one-on-one sessions? I mean, the therapists with the
that's a really good question, and I'm still trying to figure that one out. The data that I was hearing about earlier today about the ability to do telerehabilitation, it kind of raises the possibility that maybe a single therapist will be able to work with several different people at the same time. I don't know. It would be nice if in areas where there's a high need for services and very few therapists available, it would be nice if technology could allow us to have a larger impact on more people. I don't know if the data will actually support that kind of approach. What I found in just the limited work that I've done is that we've had very good results in keeping people engaged with these highly technological interventions. But it's used, we've actually had a team of therapists right there assisting the patient to use the apparatus. So it has been one-on-one, or in some cases, two-on-one, two therapists to a single patient to try and coach them to use the technology. Eventually, maybe they will start to be able to use it individually and might require less assistance. Right now, I view it as technology is an aid to what interpersonal one-on-one therapists can do. It enhances their effect. It maximizes the impact of their work. Someday, maybe we'll have the ability to do treat more than one person.
Is it easier to gain evidence through a scientific method of program of virtual reality than a standard program of pencil and paper?
Yeah, that's such a good question. It's so important for us to be looking at this right now, and the reason is this. Especially using the computerized interventions that we have, that I was describing to you, that we're working on, that I've seen being developed here. Yeah. They're very good at tracking progress on the task itself. excellent. You can get precision of data. You can manipulate the conditions much more systematically when you have a computerized intervention, much better than in standard care therapy. However, the most important step that I think we need to address in outcome research is not how well people get at the task itself. It's not, how well can I use, the RIC robot to go ahead and acquire these different targets in virtual space. It's not how well can I use the virtual reality or the, what is it? The Kinects, yeah. How well can I use Kinects to navigate these virtual slalom flags? It's how much does it make a difference in daily function? How am I improving my balance? How am I improving my gait? In my case, how well am I improving my ability to live independently, to do my own bookkeeping, to go back to work?
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of things that actually I don't think my computer data are going to be very sensitive to. What's important is then, do I have good technologies for assessing those real life outcomes? And in that case, I think maybe computers may be helpful for us eventually, but we need to take that second step and not just track performance on the task itself, but have a high level of sophistication in measuring real life outcomes.
What about the human factor? Because it's not the same that the patient is treated by or with the help of a machine rather than with a human being.
Yeah, I wonder about that sometimes. I think that, it's interesting. I think there are some personalities, there are some kinds of people who are out there who just love the machines. They would rather interact with the machine than with the person. I think of friends I have, family members I have who are a little anxious, who in social situations they tend to isolate and keep to themselves. And in some cases it's much easier for them to use a machine to get what they need than rather to negotiate with a person what it is that they like. There's more anxiety. What if they get mad at me? What if they don't like me? What if I look dumb? I know in my own case, learning another language is my wife teaches people English as a second language. And she says the number one obstacle that you have in acquiring another language is anxiety about speaking to someone in that language. She teaches these students, they do pretty good in the classroom where they know people. They do pretty good in understanding other people when they leave the classroom. The thing that's hard for them is then to go ahead and talk in another language once they leave the classroom. For those folks, interacting with the machine might actually be easier. There's an interesting website that I sometimes like to go to called Live Mocha, that allows you to practice interacting with native speakers of another language. You do writing exercises, you do speaking exercises, and then it goes out over to the web, and then different people around the world can volunteer to listen to what you've done, to read what you've done, and to give you pointers and feedback about how you've done. Although I sometimes get very anxious in practicing my French or practicing my Swedish around real life persons, I love Live Mocha. I get on it all day long. I've gotten very helpful pointers. There's a guy in Algeria who's given me really good pointers on my French. There's several people throughout Sweden who've helped me work on my Swedish. And I'll do it all day long. Whereas here in this beautiful city where there's so much that's available to me, I'm very shy to say a single word in Spanish because I'm afraid I'll do it wrong. So in some cases, I think the technology actually makes it easier for some people. Other folks, they don't like the machines. They'd much rather have a warm human presence.
They plan all these exercises and tasks for the Kinect. They have like two different kind of tasks that they are available for patients. One are what they call the neurocognitive gym, actually like a gym. So they exercise and develop all of these tasks that they have no relation to actual life, tasks that maybe you don't have to perform in real life. and others that are actual functional tasks, so like how to learn to cook and all that. So do you think both these two different kind of tasks, both of them are interesting, necessary maybe, both of them, or do you think that one might be the task and the other one it wouldn't be that bad to get rid of it?
I think they're both essential, and I think one of the nice parts about doing work with virtual reality is it allows you to very carefully assess exactly what, very carefully control exactly what it is that you're presenting to the patient. And you can gradually increase the level of complexity or the ability to reenact the real world. The thing that's difficult, I think, when you're doing, especially neurocognitive work, where I think our understanding of the mental processes that are involved in everyday life is pretty limited. You have the ability to study individual components in isolation, and then gradually move to a richer task that involves a whole bunch of things at once. There's a very interesting presentation that I heard recently by someone who specializes in functional imaging, looking at fMRI and PET and all that. He says our technology is really advanced very quickly in our ability to image the activity of the human brain, what parts of the brain are active during different tasks. Our technology has not advanced so quickly at being able to define the tasks that the person does when they're in the fMRI machine, so that we don't have a clear understanding of exactly what it is that they're doing when they make a particular part of the brain light up.
Yeah.
We need to have both. And the nice part about the lab where I'm working right now is that I think we can go ahead and work pretty. I have a very simple task, 100%, and we know pretty much exactly what parts of the brain are being engaged. The next step is going to be to gradually translate that into more functional activity and see where that component has direct impact on real life function. Yeah, it's interesting. We're in the first part of my own research, we did a tolerance study. We had a very, very simple task, and we put patients through 2 days, about 45 minutes on each day, just reaching for spheres, popping bubbles with the robot. I thought it looked cool. I thought, and because it is difficult for someone who's in the earliest stages of recovery to do something like that, I thought they'd be on board for the whole time. But when we had a total of like 90 minutes of popping the bubbles, after a while the performance dropped off. In fact, we have one person who actually had a very good recovery eventually. And so now she's able to sit down and talk about the experience. And she goes into great detail of how much she hated popping those bubbles. She says, "This is the most boring task that anyone's ever come up with. Why did you make me do that?" So when we did the new task that we're talking about today, we ended up with, 20 different difficulty levels and different amounts of complexity. And even then, I think there's a little bit of a drop-off in motivation toward the end. It's really going to be tough finding ways to really hook people in and to keep that level of motivation up. To try and find ways to maximize, like we were seeing in the presentation just a few minutes ago, to maximize the dopaminergic activity that seems to make activities really reinforcing. It makes you want to do them. Our new medical director in brain injury, Dr. David Ripley, has done some good work. Jordan Grafman, I'm sorry. Jordan Grafman has done some really good work in looking at reinforcement. And I'm hoping that maybe we can collaborate on finding ways to maximize that level of motivation, to make therapy reinforcing, and to really kind of hook them in so they want to keep getting better.
Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Larson.
Well, it's been a pleasure.